The Concordia hub gleamed against the velvet backdrop of space, its crystalline spires and domed habitats housing one of the galaxy's premier centers for interspecies research and cultural exchange. In the comparative biology laboratory, the air recyclers hummed quietly as they maintained the delicate balance required for multiple species to coexist in the same environment. Captain Eva Rostova wiped her nose with a tissue and grimaced. The common cold was hardly life-threatening, but the timing couldn't have been worse. She had promised Dr. Eris Thorne a tour of the human habitation sector today, and Xylarians were famously fastidious about biological contamination. "I should reschedule," she muttered to herself, checking her reflection in a polished panel. Her eyes were slightly reddened, her nose raw from constant blowing. Nothing alarming by human standards, but to other species. The lab doors slid open with a soft hiss. Dr. Eris Thorne entered, his crystalline silicon-based form catching the light and refracting it in elegant patterns across the walls. Behind him followed the imposing figure of Specialist Krell, a Grochner whose thick, armor-like skin bore the distinctive ridges of a desert-dwelling clan. Completing the trio was Apprentice Lyra, a young Lumina whose gossamer form pulsed with gentle bioelectric energy. "Captain Rostova," Eris greeted, his voice resonating with perfect clarity. "We have come for our scheduled." He stopped abruptly as Eva sneezed violently into her tissue. "Fascinating," Eris murmured, while Krell took several hasty steps back. "Is it contagious?" the Grochner demanded, his voice like stones grinding together. Eva smiled apologetically. "Just a human cold. Nothing to worry about for non-humans. I was actually about to message you to reschedule our tour." "Absolutely not," Eris replied, his crystalline appendages glinting with what Eva recognized as scientific excitement. "This presents a unique observational opportunity." Eva sneezed again, and this time Krell could no longer contain himself. "What the hell is wrong with human biology?" the Grochner exclaimed, his armored brow plates shifting in what Eva recognized as an expression of disgust. "You're leaking from your face." Eva opened her mouth to respond, but Eris spoke first, his tone taking on the measured cadence he used for scientific discussions. "Indeed, Specialist Krell raises an intriguing question. Human biology does display numerous characteristics that appear counterintuitive from comparative xenobiological perspectives." The Xylarian turned to Eva. "Captain, would you consent to a formal discussion and analysis of human biological anomalies? For cross-species understanding, of course." Engineer Ben Carter, who had just entered the lab with a stack of data pads, laughed. "You want to put us under the microscope, Dr. Thorne?" "Metaphorically speaking," Eris replied. "Those samples could be arranged if—" "Let's stick to discussion for now," Eva interjected hastily. She knew that Xylarians, with their pure crystalline biology, often struggled to understand why humans were so protective of their bodily autonomy. "Ben and I would be happy to explain our weird human ways." Lyra approached Eva cautiously, her luminous form brightening with curiosity. "Your bioenergy field fluctuates with each expulsion," she observed. "It creates beautiful ripples, though somewhat chaotic." Eva sighed. She could already tell this was going to be an interesting day. At least it would further interspecies relations, which was half her job aboard Concordia Hub. And perhaps it would finally help her alien colleagues understand why humans weren't just defective organisms blundering through space. "All right," she said, "where shall we begin this dissection of human flaws?" "The primary systems would be logical," Eris replied. "Digestion, waste elimination, immune response, thermoregulation, and neural-emotional networks." Krell made a sound suspiciously like a snort. "We could start with why they fall apart so easily." Eva exchanged a glance with Ben. This was going to be a long day indeed. Eris led them to the main conference room, where multiple species could comfortably gather. The walls displayed various anatomical diagrams, including human ones that Eva found slightly embarrassing in their detail. "Let us begin with digestion," Eris announced, highlighting the human digestive tract on the largest display. Humans possess an omnivorous system capable of processing diverse organic matter, including deceased animal tissue and plant reproductive organs. You mean meat and fruit, Ben clarified, popping a synthesized grape into his mouth with deliberate casualness. Krell watched the action with undisguised revulsion. You just consumed that without any preliminary breakdown or sterilization. Eva shrugged. Our digestive system handles that internally. With significant inefficiency, Eris noted, bringing up comparative data. Human digestion extracts approximately 75 to 85% of available nutrients, with the remainder excreted as waste. The Xylarian crystalline absorption matrix achieves 99.4% efficiency. But you can only absorb specific mineral compounds, Eva pointed out. Humans can eat almost anything organic from thousands of worlds. At what cost? Eris countered, zooming in on microscopic images. Your digestive tract harbors trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses, living inside you at all times. Lyra's light dimmed slightly. You contain multitudes? Within your body? Ben grinned. Our gut microbiome is essential to our health. We're not just individuals, we're entire ecosystems. Disturbingly inefficient design, Krell muttered. Grochner digestive sacs contain specialized dissolution enzymes that break down all matter completely. No need for hitchhikers. Eva was about to respond when her stomach gurgled loudly. A perfectly normal sound to human ears, but apparently shocking to their alien colleagues. Lyra's form flickered in alarm, while Eris hastily recorded the audio. That was merely intestinal movement, Eva explained, feeling her face warm with embarrassment. Gas and fluid shifts are normal during digestion, and that leads to another human peculiarity, Eris continued, seemingly delighted by this turn in the conversation. Gaseous expulsions from both ends of the digestive tract, caused by bacterial fermentation and air swallowing. Ben couldn't help laughing. Are we really discussing burping and farting as serious scientific topics? It is no laughing matter, Krell growled. Such loss of containment would be considered a severe biological malfunction in most evolved species. Eris nodded. The unpredictable and uncontrollable nature of these expulsions does suggest a rudimentary regulatory system. Eva felt herself becoming defensive. Our digestive system is actually quite remarkable. We can survive on incredibly varied diets that would kill other species. The trade-off for this versatility is some inelegance. Which brings us to waste elimination, Eris continued, smoothly transitioning to the next topic as diagrams of the human excretory system appeared on screen. Lyra's light dimmed to an embarrassed glow. Is this discussion truly necessary? Absolutely, Eris responded. Waste management has profound implications for evolutionary fitness and efficiency. For the next 20 minutes, Eva and Ben endured a clinical dissection of human waste production and elimination. Eris seemed particularly troubled by the frequency of human waste elimination and the infrastructure required to support it. You must construct specialized facilities everywhere humans live, he noted. And the chemical composition of your waste contains numerous compounds that could be recaptured and reused by a more efficient system. Grochner's recycle 94% of bodily waste internally, Krell announced with unmistakable pride. Only minuscule mineral deposits need be expelled monthly. That's impressive, Eva conceded, though she privately thought it sounded uncomfortable. And the odors, Eris continued. Human waste, perspiration, even breath contain volatile compounds that can be detected at considerable distances. Which is why we have hygiene practices, Ben interjected. Cleaning, deodorants, oral care. Compensatory behaviors for fundamental design flaws, Eris concluded. Though commendable adaptations, nonetheless. Eva sneezed again, providing a perfect segue to the next topic. All three aliens recoiled slightly. Your immune system appears equally chaotic, Eris observed, refocusing the displays to show microscopic battles between human white blood cells and pathogens. These reactions are remarkably aggressive. They need to be, Eva explained, dabbing her nose. Earth evolved millions of pathogens that constantly mutate. Our immune system has to be hypervigilant, but it often attacks harmless substances, Eris pointed out. These allergic reactions seem entirely counterproductive, and the symptoms of your defensive measures often seem worse than the threat, Krell added. Elevated temperatures that damage your own tissues, excessive mucus production that impairs respiration, inflammatory responses that cause pain and impair function. Lyra moved closer to Eva, studying her with gentle curiosity. Your energy field shows strange fluctuations with each immune response, like little explosions. That's a good analogy, Eva admitted. Our immune system sometimes feels like carpet bombing when a surgical strike would do. The fever has purposes, though, Ben explained. Many pathogens can't survive higher temperatures. Our body makes itself inhospitable to them, at significant energy cost and risk to neural tissue, Eris noted. The Xylarian defensive matrix simply identifies and dissolves foreign molecules through precise chemical targeting, but can it adapt to completely novel pathogens? Eva challenged. Human immune systems learn and remember. They create new defenses for new threats. Eris hesitated. An interesting trade-off. Inefficient but adaptable versus efficient but specialized. Their discussion was interrupted by an alert tone. Eva checked her communicator and sighed. Mandatory physical training assessment in 30 minutes, she explained. Concordia regulations for human crew. This I must observe, Krell declared immediately. Physical capability metrics will add crucial data to our analysis. Eva considered objecting, but knew the Grochner's interest was genuinely scientific, if somewhat uncomfortable. Fine, but no interfering with the testing protocols. Half an hour later, Eva was regretting her decision as she completed the strength assessment portion of her fitness test under the watchful eyes of her alien colleagues. Engineer Carter had been called away to deal with a minor systems issue, leaving her alone with the scrutiny. Remarkable inefficiency in muscle fiber contraction, Eris observed as Eva finished her final set of resistance exercises. Nearly 80% of energy consumed generates heat rather than mechanical work. Yet the power-to-mass ratio is surprisingly adequate, Krell admitted grudgingly. Though a Grochner child could still achieve 3 times the output. Eva moved to the cardiovascular assessment station, tried to ignore their commentary as she began running on the treadmill. Within minutes, perspiration began beading on her skin, eventually running in rivulets down her face and neck. Eris approached, fascination evident in his crystalline structure. You are leaking again, different from the nasal discharge. This appears to be primarily water with dissolved electrolytes. It's called sweating, Eva explained between control breaths. It's how we regulate temperature during exertion. You cool yourselves by wasting precious water and minerals? Krell sounded genuinely shocked. On desert worlds, such behavior would be rapidly selected against. Earth has abundant water, Eva replied, and this system allows us to remain active in hot conditions far longer than many species. Lyra hovered nearby, her light pulsing in rhythm with Eva's running. The energy pattern is fascinating, like waves of heat rippling outward from your form. The assessment continued through endurance testing, flexibility measurements, and reaction time evaluation. Throughout it all, the alien observers cataloged what they perceived as deficiencies. Limited muscle power, easily damaged connective tissues, relatively fragile skeletal structures, and persistent water and electrolyte loss. Yet something is missing from our analysis, Eris noted as Eva toweled off after completing the assessment. The data suggests humans should exhibit significantly poorer survival outcomes than actual statistics indicate. Because you're only measuring isolated physical attributes, Eva explained. Human physical capacity is about integration and adaptability, not specialized performance. As if on cue, the station's alert system activated, its pulsing amber light indicating a moderate emergency situation. The automated announcement followed immediately. Attention, all personnel. Environmental system malfunction in Science Section 12B. Localized atmospheric pressure drop detected. Non-emergency personnel, please evacuate the area. Technical team response required. Eva's communicator buzzed with specific instructions. That's Ben's location, she said with concern. I need to get there. We will accompany you, Eris declared. This may provide observational data under stress conditions. Eva wanted to object, but didn't have time. She grabbed an emergency response kit and led the way at a rapid pace through the station's corridors. Science Section 12B housed several specialized research environments, including a variable gravity laboratory. When they arrived, warning lights flashed around the sealed main entrance. Engineer Carter's voice came through the communication system, sounding strained but controlled. Pressure seals failing on the northeast quadrant, he reported. I've isolated the main lab, but I'm trapped in the control room. Atmosphere dropping to 0.7 standard and continuing to decrease. Eva quickly assessed the situation through the monitoring systems. The backup environmental controls are offline. We need to activate the manual override and get you out of there. The manual override is inside the control room, Ben replied. And the atmosphere is already too thin for you to safely enter without gear. Krell stepped forward. Grockners can withstand vacuum for short periods. I could enter, but the override system requires human authorization and biometric confirmation, Eva explained. It has to be me. She turned to the emergency kit and began removing the compact rebreather system it contained. This will not provide sufficient protection, Eris objected. The protocol clearly states full environmental suits for pressure below 0.75 standard. No time to get to the suit storage, Eva replied, already fitting the rebreather mask over her face. This will give me enough oxygen to activate the override and get Ben out. Your tissues will begin suffering damage almost immediately, Eris insisted. The reduced pressure will cause gas expansion in body cavities, possible embolism. I know the risks, Eva cut him off, and I know what my body can handle. She turned to the sealed door. Override emergency lock, authorization Rostova, Alpha 3-7. The door slid open, and immediately Eva felt the pressure difference pulling at her. The mask provided oxygen, but her ears popped painfully as she pushed forward into the depressurized corridor. Her exposed skin prickled as moisture began to evaporate more rapidly, and she could feel her lungs working harder against the reduced pressure. Behind her, the three aliens followed, Krell seemingly unaffected, Eris moving with extra caution, and Lyra's energy form fluctuating in the changing conditions. Your capillaries are dilating at an alarming rate, Eris noted with concern. And your core temperature is dropping due to accelerated evaporative cooling. Not helping, Doctor. Eva managed through gritted teeth as they reached the control room door. Inside, Ben was at the main console, his own emergency rebreather in place. Pressure's down to 0.62 and falling, he reported. Primary seals completely failed. Eva moved immediately to the environmental override panel, pressing her palm against the biometric scanner while entering her command codes with her free hand. Rerouting to tertiary environmental system, she announced, feeling lightheaded as the air thinned further. Warning, the station's computer announced. Atmospheric pressure approaching critical minimum for human physiology. Eva's vision began to blur around the edges, but she forced herself to complete the sequence. Activating emergency repressurization. For a moment, nothing happened, and Eva felt her consciousness beginning to fade. Then a hissing sound filled the room as emergency oxygen flooded in from reserve tanks. The pressure gauge began to climb slowly. We need to get out while the reserves hold, Ben said, moving to help Eva, who was now visibly struggling. I am perfectly capable, she began, then stumbled as her legs suddenly felt like water. To everyone's surprise, it was Lyra who darted forward, her energy form extending to provide support. Your bioelectric field is destabilizing, the young luminous said. Allow assistance. Together, The unusual group made their way back to the main corridor as emergency repair drones finally arrived to address the breach. Once safely beyond the containment doors, Eva removed her mask and took several deep, grateful breaths of properly pressurized air. That was unnecessarily reckless, Eris stated, though Eva detected something like reluctant admiration in his tone. It was necessary, she countered, still breathing heavily. And calculated. I knew exactly how long I could function in those conditions. You willingly endured tissue damage and potential long-term harm, Krell observed. For what purpose? To help Ben, Eva replied simply. That's what humans do. An evolutionary disadvantage, Eris noted. Prioritizing others at cost to self reduces individual fitness, but increases group survival, Ben pointed out. Humans rarely survive alone. We thrive through cooperation and mutual protection. After a brief medical check confirmed that both humans had suffered no lasting damage from the incident, they returned to the conference room to continue their discussion. Eva noticed a subtle shift in how the aliens regarded them now. Still analytical, but with an added dimension of curiosity, respect. It was hard to define. I believe we should address the most perplexing aspect of human biology, Eris announced as they settled back into their seats. Your neural-emotional systems. Lyra brightened visibly. Yes, human energy fields undergo such beautiful fluctuations with emotional states, like cosmic radiation storms, but contained within a single being. Less poetically, Eris continued, human brains appear to operate under dual and often conflicting systems. Logical reasoning capabilities exist alongside primitive emotional responses that frequently override optimal decision-making. You make emotions sound like a design flaw, Eva said with a smile. But they're actually sophisticated information processing systems. Information processing that causes water to leak from your visual organs when certain neural pathways activate? Krell sounded skeptical. What possible advantage could that serve? Tears signal to others that we need help or connection, Ben explained. There is social communication. Tool, as are laughter, blushing, expressions of anger or fear, Eva added. They allow rapid, honest signaling between individuals. But they can be falsified, Eris pointed out, and they appear to cause significant internal resource allocation to non-essential functions. Lyra moved closer to Eva. May I observe more directly? The young Lumina asked hesitantly. My species can sense bioelectric patterns without invasive measures. Eva nodded, though she felt suddenly vulnerable. Of course. Lyra's form expanded slightly, enveloping Eva in a gentle corona of luminescence. The Lumina remained silent for several moments, her light pulsing in complex patterns. Extraordinary, she finally whispered, withdrawing. There are currents beneath currents, layers of processing occurring simultaneously. Logic and emotion are not separate but interwoven, creating resonances that amplify both. An interesting observation, Eris acknowledged. But the question remains, why maintain such a complex and often contradictory system? Eva considered how to explain. Because the universe itself is complex and contradictory. Logical analysis works for predictable situations, but many challenges require intuitive leaps, emotional intelligence, or creative solutions that pure logic might never discover. And what are your peculiar attachment behaviors? Krell interjected. Humans form strong pair bonds with no reproductive purpose, maintain relationships with no survival benefit, and even develop attachments to non-human organisms or inanimate objects. We call that friendship, family, and love, Ben said with a smile. And they have tremendous survival value, just not in ways you're measuring. Humans with strong social connections live longer, recover faster from illness and injury, and show greater resilience to stress, Eva explained. Our irrational attachments are actually highly adaptive. Even your attachment to non-humans? Eris questioned. Especially those, Eva insisted. They expand our capacity for understanding and empathy beyond our own kind. Rather useful traits for a species exploring a galaxy full of different life forms, wouldn't you say? Before Eris could respond, the station's emergency alert system activated again, this time with the red pulsing light indicating a severe situation. Attention, all personnel. Multiple hull breaches detected in Research Wing Delta. Containment failure in Xenobiology Secure Lab 3. Unknown biological contamination spreading. All personnel evacuate to emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Eva and Ben were on their feet instantly. That's a level 1 emergency, Eva stated, already moving toward the door. We need to get a shelter. The Xenobiology lab contains sample from the Proxima expedition, Eris noted, alarm evident in his normally measured voice. Several highly adaptable microbial life forms were under study there. Then we really need to move, Ben urged. The corridors were already filling with station personnel heading toward designated emergency shelters. Eva's communicator buzzed with a priority message from Station Command. Captain Rostova, report to emergency control immediately. Engineering expertise required. Eva looked at Ben. You get our guests to the nearest shelter. I have to go to control. We will accompany you, Eris declared unexpectedly. This biological contamination may present unique threats to different species. Our comparative knowledge could prove valuable. Eva wanted to argue, but recognized the logic. Fine, but follow my directions exactly. Emergency control was several sections away, requiring them to navigate through increasingly chaotic corridors. Status displays showed red warning indicators spreading across the station schematic as containment protocols activated, sealing off affected areas. When they arrived at control, the scene was one of focused intensity rather than panic. Station Commander Takahashi looked up from the central display as they entered. Captain Rostova, good. We need your ventilation system expertise. The contaminant appears to be airborne, and our standard filtration isn't containing it. She nodded to the alien visitors. Dr. Thorne, Specialist Krell, Apprentice Lyra, your presence is unexpected but potentially useful. What exactly are we dealing with? Eva asked, moving to the environmental systems console. Microorganism from Proxima Centauri C, a scientist explained, his face pale with concern. Extremophile with remarkable adaptive capabilities. It's demonstrating accelerated mutation in our atmosphere, something we didn't observe in contained testing. Current effects? Eris inquired, moving to examine the biological data scrolling across a nearby screen. It's attaching to lung tissue in exposed personnel, the scientist replied. 17 confirmed cases so far. Symptoms include respiratory distress, fever, and in 2 cases pulmonary. Hemorrhaging. Human-specific pathogenicity? Krell asked. Unknown. No non-human exposures reported yet, but we're operating under worst-case assumptions. Eva focused on the ventilation schematics, identifying potential containment points. If we reconfigure the atmosphere processing in sections 22 through 35, we could create a negative pressure zone to contain airflow. That would require manual reconfiguration of the primary junction, Commander Takahashi pointed out. It's in an already contaminated area. I'll go. Eva volunteered immediately. Full hazard suit, of course. Inadvisable, Eris interjected. If this pathogen is specifically targeting lung tissue, humans are at greatest risk. I'll accompany her, Krell stated unexpectedly. Grochner respiratory systems are fundamentally different, and our dermal layer provides additional protection. Eva looked at the Grochner with surprise. Just hours ago, he had been dismissing humans as biologically inferior. Now he was volunteering to enter danger alongside her. I can assist as well, Lyra offered. Lumina energy fields can potentially disrupt microbial activities without physical contact. Commander Takahashi nodded. Proceed with caution. Engineering will prepare hazard suits modified for each of your physiologies. 20 minutes later, Eva found herself leading the unusual team through a sealed airlock into the contaminated sector. Her hazard suit was bulky but reassuring, though it limited mobility considerably. Krell's suit was modified to accommodate his larger frame and armored physiology, while Lyra's was a specialized containment field that allowed her energy form to function while remaining isolated. The corridors were eerily empty, emergency lighting casting everything in a red glow. Environmental warnings flashed on every display panel they passed. Primary junction is 2 levels down. Eva informed them through the suit's communication system. We'll need to reroute power, then physically reconfigure the airflow regulators. I am detecting unusual microbial concentrations, Eris reported from control, where he remained to coordinate. Particularly dense near ventilation outflows. As they descended via emergency ladders, Eva noticed Krell watching her closely. Your species seems remarkably unconcerned about entering contaminated environments, the Grochner observed. Hardly unconcerned, Eva replied, breathing heavily from the exertion. But we have a long history of infectious disease. It's familiar territory. Yet your biological defenses are far from optimal, Krell persisted. You rely on artificial barriers rather than innate immunity. We adapt with technology where evolution hasn't provided solutions, Eva explained. It's a different approach, but effective in its own way. They reached the junction, a massive chamber where multiple ventilation shafts converged. Engineering diagrams highlighted the components they needed to modify. We need to redirect power from the secondary systems first, Eva explained, moving to a control panel. Then manually adjust the flow regulators. As she worked, a warning light began flashing on her suit's environmental display. Captain, Eris's voice came through the comm. Sensors indicate your suit integrity may be compromised. Microscopic breach detected in the left shoulder seam. Eva felt her heart rate spike, but forced herself to remain calm. How long until probable contamination? Minutes at most, Eris replied. You must return immediately for decontamination. Eva looked at the half-completed reconfiguration. Not enough time. We have to finish this first, or the containment strategy fails. Unacceptable risk, Eris insisted. No choice, Eva countered, continuing to work. Krell, I need you to adjust those flow regulators while I complete the power rerouting. The Grochner hesitated, then moved to comply. Your decision is not logical. It's perfectly logical when you consider all factors, Eva replied, working faster, including the lives at stake. As they worked, Eva felt a tickle in her throat. Imagination, perhaps, or the first sign of exposure. She refused to acknowledge it, focusing entirely on completing the reconfiguration. Power rerouting complete, she announced finally. Krell, regulators adjusted, the Grochner confirmed. Negative pressure establishing in contamination zones. It's working, Eris reported from control. Airborne contaminant levels stabilizing in outer sectors. But Captain, your suit breach is expanded. You must evacuate now. Eva nodded, but as she turned to leave, a sudden coughing spasm doubled her over. Even through the suit, the others could see the violent convulsion. She's been contaminated, Krell announced, moving quickly to Eva's side. Without hesitation, the massive Grochner lifted her easily. I will transport her to medical. Direct us to the nearest decontamination access point. Lyra's energy form brightened with concern. I may be able to help, she offered. Lumina energy fields can sometimes disrupt microbial activity. Worth trying, Eva managed between coughs. Her lungs felt increasingly heavy, each breath requiring more effort. Under Eris's guidance from control, they moved rapidly through the contaminated sector toward the nearest medical access point. As they went, Lyra's form enveloped Eva's suited figure, the luminous energy penetrating even the hazard material to create a subtle, warming glow around the human. I'm attempting to disrupt the pathogen's cellular functions, Lyra explained. Your biology is responding in unexpected ways, fighting alongside my energies rather than passively receiving them. Eva's coughing eased slightly, though breathing remained difficult. Human immune systems? Adaptable, she managed. Working with you. They reached the decontamination chamber, where medical teams waited in full protective gear. Eva was quickly transferred to their care, while Krell and Lyra underwent their own decontamination procedures. Hours later, Eva woke in the medical bay, her chest still heavy, but the acute respiratory distress relieved. Beside her bed stood not only the medical staff, but Eris, Krell, and Lyra as well. The pathogen has been neutralized in your system, the human doctor explained. A combination of aggressive immune response, antiviral treatments, and, most surprisingly, some kind of beneficial interaction with Lumina energy patterns. Ow! Eva asked weakly. Eris stepped forward. It appears your chaotic immune system, rather than following predictable response patterns, generated multiple novel approaches to the pathogen simultaneously. When Lyra's energy interacted with your cells, your immune system adapted to utilize that energy in ways neither of you could have accomplished alone. Remarkable, the doctor agreed. We're now applying similar combination therapy to other affected personnel with excellent results. Eva looked at her alien colleagues with tired amusement. So my messy, inefficient, leaky human biology turned out to be useful after all? Krell made a sound that might have been the Grockner equivalent of a chuckle. I would not go that far, Captain, but it was less catastrophically flawed than initial assessment suggested. High praise from a Grockner, Eva murmured with a smile. Your biological systems demonstrate something I had not fully appreciated, Eris admitted. Efficiency is not the only measure of evolutionary success. Adaptability, redundancy, and even seeming contradictions can provide unexpected advantages in novel situations. In your energy, Lyra added, her form pulsing with what Eva now recognized as excitement, it contains beautiful complexities that create possibilities rather than limitations. Your emotions, your connections to others, they're not weaknesses but sources of strength. By the following week, the station had returned to normal operations. The contamination had been fully contained, affected personnel had recovered, and extensive new safety protocols had been implemented for xenobiological research. Eva found herself once again in the company of Eris, Krell, and Lyra, this time in the station's observation dome, where the vast star field stretched out before them. I believe we must revisit our original inquiry, Eris stated formally. The question, what is wrong with human biology, was perhaps incorrectly framed. You think, Eva replied with gentle sarcasm. Indeed, a more accurate phrasing might be, what evolutionary trade-offs has human biology made, and what advantages do they confer? Krell nodded his massive head. Your physical fragility is offset by remarkable endurance and adaptability. Your inefficient digestive system allows unprecedented dietary flexibility. Your wasteful thermal regulation permits sustained activity in diverse environments. And your emotions, Lyra added, her light shifting through subtle colors, they create connections and possibilities that pure logic might never discover. Eva smiled, looking out at the stars. We're all products of different evolutionary histories, different planetary conditions, different challenges. There's no single right way to be a successful organism. A profound observation, Eris agreed. Biological diversity across species may be the galaxy's greatest resource. Each of us solving the challenge of existence in unique ways, each with something to offer the others. So, Eva said with a grin, no more asking what the hell is wrong with human biology. I make no such promises, Krell rumbled, but there was unmistakable humor in his tone. But perhaps I will phrase my observations more diplomatically. That's all I can ask, Eva replied, looking out at the stars with her strange, wonderful colleagues. In their differences, she reflected, they had found not just understanding but strength, a lesson worth any amount of. Awkward biological discussions. As if on cue, her stomach gurgled loudly in the quiet of the observation dome. Krell made a sound suspiciously like a laugh. Lyra's form brightened with amusement, and even Eris's crystalline structure seemed to shimmer with something like mirth. Eva sighed dramatically. Some things never change, she said, and joined in their laughter under the light of 1,000 distant suns.